But first, we get started today, just like we have each day this week, with Dr. Alice Cheng. And it's been an incredible week full of emerging science, breakthroughs in diabetes research. Anything in particular that has stood out to you over these last couple days?
So many to choose from, so it's really hard to pick just one, but I think one of the ones that I'll pick is there was a panel that I attended which was looking at treatment choices for newly diagnosed diabetes, and people sort of presented different positions, but what was great fun was actually the audience questions. And there were some really entertaining questions that came out. You could tell that people knew each other. There was some hazing, which was maybe appropriate, but very entertaining and still educational and still collaborative. But I think that's really one of the big values of being at the in-person one, certainly, is being able to hear those questions and see that camaraderie.
And all in good fun.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Any key piece of research or any results from a clinical trial that really stood out to you?
Again, lots to choose from, but I think there were a few game changers, I would say, that I just want to bring out. So I think the LENS trial, which is a trial looking at the use of fenofibrate, that's sort of an oldie but a goodie. I mean, an old medication we may not have thought about that much, but fenofibrate for diabetic retinopathy, and randomized controlled trial demonstrating that it does in fact slow progression. So offering a systemic therapy for diabetic retinopathy, I thought that really stood out. I think SURMOUNT OSA definitely stands out for tirzepatide and its ability to lessen the burden of obstructive sleep apnea, and many of our patients certainly have obstructive sleep apnea. That one definitely stood out to me. And then on top of that, INHALE-3. So INHALE-3 was a clinical trial of inhaled insulin plus basal insulin versus usual care in type 1 diabetes, and demonstrating benefits of the inhaled insulin. So I think really giving a lot of clinical information as well that we can take to our practices.
And those clinical trial results are such an integral part of the scientific session, so certainly something we want to highlight. All right, our final day, what's on tap for Monday?
Lots on tap for Monday, so I think people can hopefully still have lots of energy left after the previous 3 days of learning so much. We're going to start off the day at 8 a.m. with the fan favorite, which is the year in review, which everybody usually really likes. So we're going to hear from the basic science, translational science, as well as clinical science, and year in review, sort of highlights from the past year. At the same time, there's also going to be the world premiere of consensus guidance on monitoring for early stage type 1 diabetes, which I think will be very useful for us to hear about. And then later on in the morning, we're going to get the award lectures. So the Outstanding Scientific Achievement Award lecture and the Banting Award lecture. So those are always very inspirational.
Yes.
Then in the afternoon, we're going to hear from the FLOW trial, which has already been published, but it's always great to still hear more information, and we always hope that there's some new information that gets presented at that time. And then at 3:15, there are some significant studies that are all going to read out at the same time. We're going to hear from the TIGHT study, which is looking at continuous glucose monitoring in hospital. We're going to hear from the ATTEMPT study, which is looking at SGLT2 inhibitors in youths with type 1 diabetes. And we're also going to hear CATALYST Part 1, which is looking at hypercortisolism in type 2 diabetes. So sort of a topic we wouldn't necessarily have thought of. And that's just naming a few. I could go on and on, so I encourage everyone to certainly take a look at the program. And again, to remember that they can still access stuff on demand if they miss anything that they really wanted to see.
Right, they can go back and watch. Well, it's been an incredible week, and still one more jam-packed day still to come. Thank you so much for all of your work as a part of the planning committee and for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.